Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go ahead and get started now with our presentation on UCEAP scholarships to support study abroad in the summer of 2025. My team work in our system-wide office, so this is for all of the UCs. Your independent UC campuses may have their own scholarships. Our presentation today is related specifically to our system-wide office. Okay, should we switch our slide?
Yes, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Bryn. I was going to introduce myself, everyone. So I'm Elizabeth Holtz. I am the Scholarship and Alumni Engagement Coordinator for UCAAP. And thank you, as Bryn said, for everyone attending today.
Definitely. My name is Bryn Lemon. I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement and Scholarships in our system-wide office for UCEAP. And Elizabeth and I are both alumna of our program, so we are really passionate about the work that we do. We're excited to have everyone in attendance today. Elizabeth will be happy to see people from England and Spain, and I'm happy to see students interested in Scotland, as those are our respective countries for our study abroad programs. So we'll go ahead and get started.
I can go ahead and start us off here with the presentation. So we're going to jump into what UCAAP scholarships are available for studying abroad. So on this slide, we have our UCAP system-wide scholarship portfolio. So first, we have the UCAP Global Scholarship, and this is the scholarship that we really recommend all students who are participating in a UCAP program apply for. It's one of the scholarships that we give out the most awards for, and there is specifically no country or major requirements for it. So again, if you are participating in a UCAP program, we highly encourage you to apply for the Global Scholarship, especially because if you want to be considered for some additional awards that we refer to as named awards, you apply for a Global Scholarship to be considered for those. And we'll talk a little bit more about that process later on in the presentation. Then we also have some additional scholarships, such as the UCAP Social Media Scholarship, which we'll also talk about a little bit more later on in the presentation. And then after you return, we have the UCAP Internship Awards, as well as the Undergraduate Research Awards. And again, we will touch on all of this throughout the presentation today. Oh, Bryn, you're muted.
Excellent. One of your first questions may be, how do I apply for UCEAP scholarships? So let's go ahead and get started on that process here. So many of you in our chat mentioned that you have already started your application, which is fantastic. If you have not, Elizabeth did mention our UCEAP Global Scholarships for summer. I know we have a couple of fall participants as well, but for summer in particular, these scholarships are going to value at $1,000 per student. In fall and spring, it will be $2,000 per semester, but for summer, it is $1,000. You will go ahead and access our UCEAP scholarship application portal through this link on your screen. It is a separate application from your general application to UCEAP as a program participant. So you will need to create an account on this application portal and indicate your interest in UCEAP scholarships. From there, you'll be directed to a form where you fill out all of your basic demographic information, for example, your GPA, your major, your campus, etc. And you will have a statement of purpose response form. So this is broken up into several questions, and we'll get into the details of that a little bit later, but it is kind of a multi-step process, so it's always good to get started as early as possible.
Additionally, this slide shows some of the named awards that I said we would talk about a little bit later in the presentation. So we have our Mara Melandri Scholarship, which is a $1,200 scholarship, and we offer one of those, and that's for a student studying abroad in Italy. We also have our Guardian Scholarship, our Theta Shapiro Scholarship, and our Potter Engelskirger Mexico Lindo y Querido Scholarship. And you'll notice that there's some certain eligibility requirements on these scholarships specifically. So for the Mara Melandri, a student studying abroad in Italy. For that last scholarship I mentioned, it's a student studying abroad in Mexico. So these scholarships are, the reason why we refer to them as named awards is because they are typically named after the donor who supports the scholarship, and that donor would like to see certain students participating in certain programs studying abroad. So that is the kind of requirements for these scholarships. Now, as I said, if you submit an application for the UCAP Global Scholarship, your application will automatically be forwarded internally based on these award qualifications. So that means if you are a student who is studying abroad in Italy for summer 2025 or studying abroad in Mexico, and you submit a UCAP global scholarship application, your application will automatically be considered for these named awards if you meet the qualifications. So again, these awards are not applied to awards, they're internally considered. And so you may see them on the application site, but you won't have the ability to apply for them because they are not applied to awards. Again, the way you get considered for them is if you meet those eligibility requirements and you submit a UCAP global scholarship application. So again, we highly encourage everyone to do so.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We had a couple questions to follow up on that matter. So in our Q&A, Tony asks, what is a language acquisition program? Is it like taking a foreign language class abroad, or is it a separate program entirely? Good question, Tony. So typically, these programs are those that are focused more heavily on language. So not just taking perhaps one class abroad, but let's say your major is Japanese studies and you go and study in Japan, you take at least one class abroad and talk about how Japanese language will be integrated into your program in a broader sense. It's not necessarily a specific program, but it is a program that does have a high emphasis on language. So I hope that answers your question. In summer, sometimes it's a little bit trickier given that we don't have as much room for language study, but if it is an award that you'd like to aim for, definitely focus your statement on your language studies and why that is a particular passion of yours. We also had a question in our chat from Alexandra, which is, are there more named awards? So Alexandra, there are more named awards for our semester long terms. So there are broader awards for fall and spring. For summer, we do have limited offerings. It is a little bit more challenging of a term to fit in financial aid. And some donors like to focus on the longer semesters. So there should be individual awards at your campus as well, depending on the campus you're attending, as well as our broader global scholarship and social media awards, which we'll get into in a little bit. But if you have any further questions, do feel free to put them into the chat. Okay, should we move on to our next slide here? Excellent. So what other scholarships does UCEAP offer? So additional UCEAP scholarships. So I had just mentioned our UCEAP social media scholarship. This is one of our newer awards, and it is focused on students who are interested in filmmaking or some kind of media experience. So content creation, essentially what you'll be doing is working with our marketing team to develop materials from your experiences abroad that we can share with further students who are interested in studying abroad to get the word out about UCEAP and share about your experience. So if you are interested in studying communications or marketing or a subject matter like that, this might be a great award for you. They are going to be $500 for each student. Typically in summer, we're going to offer around 2 to 4 awards, depending on the amount of funding we have. I believe this term it's going to be 2. And during the semester, we typically offer 4 per term. These are competitive awards. I would say these are some of our most competitive awards. We have a lot of applications each year. So if you are planning to apply for this, I certainly encourage you to put a lot of effort into your application, as I would with any application in our system. But I would say these tend to be particularly competitive. So if you are interested in applying, make sure the materials you create for that application are targeted to this application. It's not simply a video that you made years ago that you uploaded a link to. If you are interested in applying, I definitely recommend creating individual content for this purpose.
And just to add to this, you'll note on this slide it says requires an additional application. So unlike the named awards we've just previously discussed, this award is an apply to award and does require a separate application from the global scholarship.
Okie dokie. We do have a question about combining funding. We will address that in a little bit. So Charlene, if you just hold on, we will address that question in a bit.
So now we're going to move on to what eligibility requirements are necessary for UCAP scholarships. And all UCAP students are eligible to apply for UCAP scholarships. That's the main thing we want everyone to take away today. So UCAP does not have citizenship, residency, or other specific eligibility requirements related to that. If you are a UC student who applies and are ultimately selected to participate in an outbound UCAP program, you are eligible for a UCAP scholarship. Oh,
excellent. Okay, so many of you may be wondering what are the application deadlines for our scholarship applications. So we'll go over them on our next slide here. For summer, our current term, so summer and fall / year-long applications are all open currently. They opened on the 15th of January. And for summer, they will close on February 15th. So that deadline is approaching. We are getting towards the end of January. If you haven't yet started your application, please do start it soon. As you see in orange up above, you must submit your application by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on your respective deadlines. So we do not offer extensions. We don't offer late applications. We don't offer exemptions. So definitely ensure that you submit your materials with enough advance notice so that if you do encounter a technical error, you are able to reach out to us about that and we can help you. This particular year, our summer deadline does fall on a Saturday, and unfortunately, so does our fall deadline. So we will not be answering questions about applications after around 3 p.m. on Friday. So do ensure that you submit everything with enough notice to reach out to us if you have any trouble. For those in the chat who are attending fall or year-long programs, your deadline is going to be March 15th. And if you are just a really keen student here interested in spring, those applications won't open until August 15th and they will be due on September 15th. So do keep those deadlines in mind. Take a picture of this slide. Whatever you need to do to remember, February 15th is the latest you can submit for summer.
And just an additional note, so we highly encourage everyone to start your application early. As you can see, the application site is currently open for summer and fall or year-long scholarship applications. And you have the ability to save your application as a draft. So that is something we encourage, especially as Bryn mentioned, the deadline falls on a Saturday for both for summer and fall year-long applications. And the last 3 p.m. on a Friday is probably around the last time that you'll be able to contact us in the office. And there are occasionally technical issues as with any technical system. So you definitely can draft your application ahead of time, but be sure that you submit your application. It's a separate button from Save, and it's the orange button in the bottom right corner. Make sure that you submit your application before any application deadlines. Unfortunately, even if your application is drafted but not submitted by the deadline, we will not be able to consider it. So again, make sure you submit your applications before those deadlines if you do draft them ahead of time.
All right. Let's move on to our next slide, which is what requirements are there for accepting a UCEAP scholarship? So let's say that you have applied and you were accepted for your particular program. So go ahead and move on to our next slide here. So if you do receive an award, you will need to fill out a thank you letter to the donor of your award upon acceptance, as well as uploading a photo of yourself just to share with the donor. Once you return from your time abroad, you will be submitting a 2-page report about your time, as well as a collection of photographs from your experience. So the post-program requirements for a social media application are a little bit distinct. You will be required to submit more material that is more tailored to the particular requirements of our marketing team. But for our broader awards, the named awards and global scholarships, this is going to be the requirement if you are selected.
And as we move on to the next slide, a fun fact is that the majority of the photos, if all is think except one, actually are examples of photos that past scholarship recipients have submitted. So you can get an idea of, we don't have any real critiques for the type of photos you submit for scholarship reports, but it's nice to see just photos that showcase your time abroad. So now we're going to move on to what are some application tips for students interested in applying for UCEAP scholarships. So first and foremost, we want you to make your personal statement responses memorable. Be specific about your background and reasons for going abroad. Scholarship reviewers typically read hundreds of applications every term. And although we understand that studying abroad is a great opportunity, it's an opportunity to travel, to become more independent, all of those things are true and wonderful, but we specifically want to know why you want to go abroad. What is your reasoning, not what are the benefits of study abroad? So be sure to tailor your personal statement responses to you and your specific reasons for going abroad. In that same kind of note, we are looking for students who have found programs that match their academic and professional development. Tell us how your program choice fits your goals. Why did you choose that program? You know, is there a certain university that you will be attending, a certain instructor, certain courses that you want to take, certain labs, certain job prospects or internships, or those are the things that really show us that you looked into studying abroad for those personal reasons that I mentioned previously. Additionally, stay away from cliches about travel and other cultures. Emphasize time spent in your host country versus the chance to travel on weekends to other countries. Again, as I said, we understand that studying abroad is a wonderful experience to travel and to see the world. And that is a fantastic benefit of studying abroad. But we really want to know why you chose your host country, why you chose your program, what you are looking forward to about your host country in particular. And this, as I said before, it can be for academic reasons, for professional reasons, even for personal reasons. If you have family history, family individuals or ties to individuals, if you have a cultural background that you want to explore, all of these are the reasons that we want to hear from you about why you want to study abroad. We also want you to keep your application responses focused with concise and clear writing, proper grammar, and accurate spelling. Have someone review your application responses. So if you have a writing center on your UC campus, we highly encourage you to take advantage of that and make an appointment. And even if not, because we understand not all UC campuses do, have someone else, whether it's a colleague, a friend, a family member, have someone review your application responses, as it's always good to just get another pair of eyes on something you're writing. Sometimes you can get so focused on your writing that other individuals can notice things that maybe you don't because you're so focused on a theme or a message or things like that. So, and lastly, and this one's really important, create a unique response to each prompt. Scholarship reviewers will be checking student statements for the use of AI, and applications will not be awarded points for AI generated statements. So one, we can tell when AI generated statements are used. There's a lot of formatting giveaways, and not to mention just the use of AI. Like I said, on this slide, the main point is to be unique, to be specific, to be personal. AI is not those things. And so we really encourage you to take the time to create unique responses to each prompt. As stated on the slide, if scholarship reviewers notice or suspect the use of AI on your applications, unfortunately, points will not be awarded for that.
Okay, so now to address the question we got earlier from Sherlyn, can I combine UCEAP scholarships? So funding for the UCEAP Global Scholarship cannot be combined with funds from named awards. So you saw the list of named awards earlier. Let's say it's going to be the Mara Landry Award or the Theda Shapiro Award. We do not combine those particular scholarships. Students who are selected for these awards will receive the higher value. So if your named award is $1,200, you'll be receiving that one over the global scholarship. And so we do not combine that funding. That being said, the social media scholarship is independent as you apply to it separately, so that can be combined with your global scholarship or a named award if you receive one of the two. And you can combine our scholarship with campus-based scholarships or funding from an external organization. So let's say you apply to a UCSB Gaucho scholarship, you receive that one as well as a global, as well as a social media scholarship, you can combine all of that funding. The reason we don't combine our named awards and global scholarships is to spread our funding as evenly as possible across the student body. So we just don't combine those two together. I hope that answers your question, Sherlyn. If you have any other questions, do feel free to pop it into the Q&A.
So now we're going to move on to what are the post-program award options. So the post-program awards are, as the name implies, awards that you apply for after you return from participating in your study abroad program. And we have the UCEAP internship awards that are $750 award amounts that recognize students who have distinguished themselves while acquiring career training and workplace skills on a study abroad program. Awards are offered semi-annually for internships in all disciplines, as well as the undergraduate research awards that vary between $1,000 to $1,500, and those recognize undergraduate students who have conducted exceptional research while studying abroad. Awards are offered annually for research projects in all disciplines. There is a link on this slide that you can access. Additionally, if you have trouble with the presentation, you can email us and we can refer you to the individuals that manage the post-program awards, because that is actually not something that we manage. So if you have specific questions about what that looks like or what the application looks like, please do visit this link, or like I said, reach out to us and we can refer you to that page or that contact. Again, these are awards that you apply for when you finish your UCA program or after you return. So that is something to keep in mind. If you are interested in doing an internship or an undergraduate research award, I would highly encourage you to be familiar with these awards so that if you are interested in applying when you return, you can. And that is the bulk of our presentation. So we ask that now you submit any questions you have to the Q&A. If you have any further questions or specific matters that you want to bring up, you can contact us at scholarships@ucap.universityofcalifornia.edu. It is also linked there on the slide for anyone. And yeah, so now we're going to turn our attention to the chat and the Q&A and see if we can answer any questions. So please do forward your questions in there.
Okay, so we'll start with a question from Isaiah, which is, you said eligible UC students can apply. What are the eligibility requirements, specifically GPA, income? So there was a slide earlier on this matter, but any student who is going abroad, so from a UC out into the world, is eligible to apply. So we don't have GPA or citizenship or income requirements in order to apply for our awards. All students are eligible. We do have a couple of awards that are for year-long that do have GPA recommendations rather than requirements, but none of our awards have any specific exclusionary factors. It's just that you need to apply, and some of our awards have particular program emphasis, but you can apply for our global scholarships for any program. Hope that answers your question. We can move back to that slide if there's further questions on that in that regard. David, you've asked about letters of recommendation. So the only applications we have that require letters of recommendation are our year-long awards. So, and our Founders Prize, which are in the spring. So that is probably not relevant to many of the students in this presentation. But our year-long awards do have a recommended letter of recommendation. It's not necessarily required, however, highly encouraged. So if you are planning to go abroad for a year at any point, you will need a letter of recommendation. You can use the same one that you submitted to the host university. We do encourage you to get an independent one if possible, just to strengthen the skill of asking for letters of rec, as well as tailoring it specifically to the award itself. It just always looks nicer for a donor to see that you have individually asked for that particular letter. Elizabeth, I'll finish the ones in the chat if you want to do the Q&A afterwards.
Okay.
April asked, does that mean I can still apply to multiple scholarships? I believe you submitted this during our combining funding slide. So yeah, definitely apply to all scholarships possible that you are eligible for. Let's clarify. So if you, let's say, are not studying abroad in Mexico, you're not going to apply for the Potter Engelskirger award. But if you are applying in Italy, definitely apply for any of the awards that you are eligible for. You just will receive the award of the highest amount if you end up being selected for multiple opportunities. Isaiah says, additionally, the internship scholarships must have completed an internship to apply. Yes, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an internship program through UCEAP, so we do offer some of those, but so even if you can independently source an internship while abroad and complete that, that is an eligible internship to use in your application, but yes, it must be an internship in order to apply for that award. So Elizabeth, I'll let you pop over to the Q&A here.
Sure thing. Okay, so an individual asked, do you need to apply or do the FAFSA to apply for any UCAP scholarships? And the answer to that is no. So you do not need to receive financial aid to apply or receive a UCAP scholarship. You do not need to fill out a FAFSA. So UCEAP scholarships are independent, and the UCAP scholarship application is the only application that you need to submit for UCEAP scholarships specifically, and obviously be enrolled in a UCEAP program. But so you do not need to apply for the FAFSA or be receiving financial aid to apply for any UCEAP scholarship. I hope that answers that question, but again, please follow up if you feel that you want additional clarification. Another question we have here is, for the social media scholarship, what was the application materials that is requested? Did it ask to submit a portfolio of certain video material? So there is the application does ask you to submit a portfolio of examples of your work. You can find more information on the scholarship site specifically that lists out exactly what the social media scholarship application requires, but a portfolio, an example portfolio of your work is requested, along with a short statement describing why you chose the materials to submit. I believe you are eligible to submit 3 types of work in your portfolio for consideration. But again, review the scholarship site specifically. That lists out exactly what the requirements are for that scholarship application. And so another question we have is, will schools also provide their own scholarship financial aid? Yes, Bryn did mention this briefly, is so every UC campus offers their own scholarships that you can apply for and be awarded. And so we do encourage you to look up or review any scholarship opportunities available both with UCAP scholarships and your campus, even with external organizations, because you can apply for various scholarships, and many of the UC campuses even have scholarships specifically for studying abroad. Another good place to go is your financial aid office, as they can also tell you just any opportunities for scholarships for any type of funding that may not be study abroad specific, as well as study abroad specific scholarships. Any additional questions for the Q&A, or Bryn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we have a few questions in our chat. So Kira mentions that their program is not listed on the site. Yes, apologies for that. There are a couple programs that seem to be missing this round. I did try to pull a complete list, but it seems like we're missing a few. So Kira, please email us. The email is on the screen here. If you send an email to us listing your program, we can add it to the list. It does not mean that you don't qualify. It just means that we weren't able to get that program on that list. So go ahead and email us and we'll ensure that it is there so you can select it. For an internship award, could it be one that has been completed in country? So like in the US, presumably is the question. No, it must be completed abroad. So it has to be one that you've completed on a program. So like I said, it doesn't have to be an internship program. Let's say you're studying abroad at the University of Edinburgh, but you find an internship independently while there. That is totally fine. But it cannot just be an internship that you completed in the US prior to studying abroad. Jonathan asks if this presentation recording will be sent out. It will be. It's going to take us a little bit to add captioning to it, but probably about a week or so turnaround time, and we will be sending out a link to this recording for all of our students studying abroad in the summer. Omar asks, how competitive are the undergraduate research awards? Good question, Omar. I can't necessarily answer that because I'm not on the review committee. I do know they are competitive. I don't know the statistics necessarily of percentage of students to those accepted. But if you do have further questions about it, Elizabeth, do you want to go back to that slide and you can look up the application, or you're welcome to email us and we can put you in contact with the administrator of that award and they can answer further questions about that. Ava asked, do the same rules apply for finding an internship independently apply to finding research independently to qualify for the research scholarship? I believe so. Again, we aren't in charge of the assessment for that award, so you'll need to clarify with the actual party running it. Again, we can put you in contact with them if you email us, but I believe so. I believe you can find your own independent research project and use that as evidence in your application. Finally, Elliot. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, yeah, we have an additional question in the Q&A from Elliot and asking if the UCAP scholarship website is the same one mentioned earlier, UC-EAP-UCOP-academicworks.com. And so the terms kind of can be confusing. So I want to clarify that the UCAP scholarship application site, so where you actually go to sign up for UCAP scholarships, to apply for UCAP scholarships, is that UC-EAP, and I can actually link it in the chat in a moment, or Bryn, if you wouldn't mind doing that as well. That is where you would actually submit your UCAP scholarship applications. There's information on the main UCAP website. So there's actually a scholarship tab on the UCAP website that goes a little more in depth into all of our scholarship offerings, including fall, year-long, spring. And it also has a link that says on the bottom of each scholarship that says learn more and apply now. And that link will take you to the Academic Works application site where you actually submit your UCAP application. So there's kind of some different terminology, but if you're just looking at the UCAP main website where you learn about programs and things like that, there is a scholarship tab that has more information about scholarships, but where you actually complete, sign up, and submit UCAP scholarship applications, which are different from UCAP program applications, is the Academic Works website. So I hope that answers that question.
Both links are in the chat now. So the top link is going to be the application portal and the bottom link is a further informational site on our broader website. Jonathan asks, what is the average amount a student receives in scholarships for study abroad trips? This varies quite a bit, so it's challenging. It's a challenging question to answer, Jonathan. But in general, students will likely receive one scholarship. So it's not super common to stack a bunch of scholarships, although it does happen. For summer, I'd say that on average, students, if they are selected for an award, will be receiving $1,000 in scholarships. Um, but again, it varies greatly from student to student, so it's challenging to produce an average. But I wish you the best of luck with your application and certainly apply for all of those that you are eligible for, and fingers crossed you'll receive them.
Also, on that note, a lot of students, if they have the flexibility in terms of their academic course load, decide to study abroad maybe in the summer and then love it so much that they study abroad again in the fall, maybe in the same location, maybe they choose a completely different program in a different location. You are eligible to apply for UCEAP scholarships every term that you will be abroad. So that is an important thing to consider, and that's how some students will apply again, and they could be offered a scholarship as like a global scholarship for the fall term as well if they applied for a global scholarship for the summer. Again, those applications are independent, so they don't carry over in any way, but you are eligible to apply every academic term that you are abroad.
Excellent. Well, we are here for any additional questions. I'll go ahead and stop our recording now. But if you have any further questions, do go ahead and place them into the chat.